Hello, everyone. My name is Emily, and today I'm going to be talking about the knee, specifically the knee joint while performing the jumping movement. A couple of fun facts about the knee before we get started. One is that the knee is often the most stressed joint in the body because it is one of the most commonly used joints. The knee absorbs a lot of shock. It has to hold you up, and during an activity like jumping, it has to deal with the force of your body weight coming down on it. The knee also has about 10 different muscles that it needs in order to function properly. If the muscles aren't working right, neither will your knee. The joint design. The knee is a hinge joint, which means it's a synovial joint that is only able to work in one plane, the sagittal plane. The knee joint is formed by the tibia, femur, and patella bones. It is also covered in cartilage. Since it only works in the sagittal plane, its primary movements are flexion and extension. Other movements will likely cause injury to the joint. The muscles. There are two main muscle groups that work in the knee, the hamstrings and the quadriceps. The hamstring muscles work in the sagittal plane, and their primary movement is flexion. The muscles that make up the hamstrings include the semimembranosus, the semitendinosus, the biceps femoris long head, and the biceps femoris short head. The quadriceps also work in the sagittal plane, however, their primary movement is extension. The main muscles involved with the quadriceps include the rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis, the vastus medialis, and the vastus intermedius. The hamstring muscles originate by the gluteal maximus muscles and insert below the knee. They are located on the back side of the leg. The quadriceps are located on the front side of the leg, where their origin is staggered. They also insert below the knee to provide support. The movement. What is a jump? A jump is when you push yourself off the ground with your legs. During the jumping motion, your knee bends, meaning you flex your knee. When you push off the ground, you extend your knee or straighten your knee in order to push the ground away to get in the air. In order to get off the ground, you need both muscles to be active so that you are able to jump. The joint movement. Since it is a hinge joint, the knee is fairly simple to understand. It only moves in one plane, the sagittal plane. The knee uses flexion when it bends. It also uses extension when it straightens. Some research. In one study by Zhao, he looked at the EMG features between biological sexes in flexor and extensors. While performing jumps, they tested the signal of the knee joint and extensor muscles. The results were that with load leg male participants, they had no real change. In female participants, there was some change in the IEMG. EMG is the detection of recording of the electrical activity in the skeletal musculature. In another study done by Morin and Wallace, they looked at eccentric loading in the range of knee joint motion, effects on the performance enhancement during vertical jumping. They looked specifically at male volleyball players, and they had a fairly small sample size with only 17 participants. But they found if you use a smaller range of motion, the jumps are better. They used a 70-degree angle versus the normal 90-degree knee joint angle that is most commonly used. They had a significant increase in jumps. However, they had no real control in the jump range of motion because they had a deficit in their understanding when this was published back in 2007. You may be wondering, what is knee joint loading? Joint loading refers to the amount of force put on the joint during flexion. When jumping, both hamstrings and the quadricep muscles are active, and they need to maintain perfect balance in order to be able to jump. People who land with less flexion in their knee joint have lower quadricep activation than those who do not. Not only is the quadricep activation low, it can increase the chance of injury. You could have a non-contact ACL tear, hyperextension, or something more. Flexion in the knee when landing a jump reduces the risk of knee injury. In conclusion, both the hamstrings and the quadriceps are very important muscles for the knee joint movement. Both must be active in order to jump. They must also maintain perfect balance to work properly to jump in the air. The knee works in the sagittal plane because it is a synovial hinge joint whose primary movements are flexion and extension. When landing a jump, before you encounter the ground, and make sure that the knee is flexed to protect it from injury. Your hips can also play a big role in keeping the knees injury-free and healthy. When performing an activity like jumping, make sure that you keep your knees aligned with your hips and ankles before you spring up in the air to reduce the risk of injury. These are the references I used during my research to create these slides. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing about the knee during the movement of jumping.